Thank you for joining us for our course selection information webinar this evening. Um, this evening we have Ms. Nicole Bryant, our Director of University Guidance, as well as our Senior School Vice Principal, Ms. Singhal, and me, Mark Brims, here to kind of begin to guide you through what the next year or a couple of years looks like at SMLS for academics for your daughter and how the course selection process for that looks. The agenda this evening basically covers supports provided by the University Guidance Department. We'll briefly recap Ontario secondary school diploma requirements. I think most people on this call are probably well versed in that by grade 10 and 11. Some of the global citizenship signature programming that complements our academic program. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of course selection, the process, the timelines, and other considerations to kind of think about as students are selecting courses. We'll also leave time for questions at the end. Having said that, if you do have questions that arise during the webinar, feel free to type them in the Q&A button at the bottom, and we will either answer in writing, or if it's a question that applies more broadly, we might answer it verbally at the end of the webinar. So just a quick sort of recap of some of the support provided by our university guidance departments. Obviously, individualized and personalized support for each student as they begin to really think about post-SMLS. Focus grad seminar programming in grade 12 for students. That's a lot of shoulder to shoulder and small group support for students as they develop their university applications, as well as get everything set up for the Ontario Universities Application Center to apply, domestically, but as well as abroad. In the fall, Ms. Bryant does a great job of running parent-focused sessions on Canadian university applications, as well as international applications. So there's 2 different webinars that run in the fall that focus on the details of those application processes. We also host university fairs, as well as panels at SMLS. So we have a Canadian International University Fair, typically in the month of October, and then one a little bit later in October, sometimes early November for international universities. Just this week, we actually had representatives from the Richard Ivey School of Business from Western, University of Toronto, McMaster University, and University of King's College in Halifax speak to our students just to get their minds thinking about different potential program options in advance of course selection. Lastly, something that's kind of unique about our school is our university guidance department helps students discover and find volunteer opportunities that are potentially within their areas of interest, and that can also help to make more robust university applications as well. We'll speak to the Ontario Secondary School diploma requirements in just a moment, but every student in Ontario has to get 40 hours of community service, so we try to help students do that a little bit more intentionally. So instead of just checking a box, they're actually getting value out of that learning that can help them moving forward. So this is just a quick snapshot of Ontario secondary school diploma requirements. Your daughter is now in grade 10 or grade 11, so has probably completed many of the compulsory credit requirements already, and is now looking to really branch out and decide what elective credits they'd like to pursue. And some of those elective credits might indeed be prerequisite credits for some of their post-secondary destinations. So it's of great importance to make sure that they're making informed decisions in that regard. Something else to note is the Ontario Ministry of Education a couple of years ago came out with a policy program memorandum stating that to graduate students required 2 online learning credits. We do offer an online learning credit through the guidance, through the careers and civics course. Many students in grade 10 or 11 have already attained that credit. Ms. Bryant will speak to the other options that students can pursue with the e-learning consortium of Canada a little bit later on in the presentation, but we do support students to attain that ministry requirement, but families also have the option to opt out. So Ms. Bryant will speak to that in a little bit. Lastly, we just wanted to note our global citizenship signature programs for students that are entering grade 11 next year. It's a big year. They have to kick things off an opportunity to lead some of our middle school students and mentor them as cabin leaders at Camp Timberlane, which is great, great skill building and transferable skills that develop there, helping to mentor, but also to manage and support younger students. At the end of the year, they cap things off with their professional internships. So that's an opportunity for students to not only gain a credit, but also to gain valuable work and life experience in a field of their interests. We do see with many students, it's very affirming. They've selected, career pathways that they're getting experience in that help really, make them more self-aware of the fact that they are on the right track. And for others, it's an experience that they realize they thought they had really been interested in and may no longer be as a result of that professional internship. And that's great. It's better to know sooner rather than later in that regard. For our students who are going into grade 12, it's an opportunity for them, obviously, to give back to the school community. Every single student in our graduating class is a leader at the school and has acts as a role model for all of our younger students. But also before they leave and go off to university, we like to make sure that they are equipped to make informed decisions, responsible decisions, and are kind of set up for success in their post-secondary endeavors. So, it's great that they can get into university and have success as we've seen with previous graduating cohorts, but we also want to make sure that we're supporting them a little bit before they go off into the world, into post-secondary. So with all of that said, I'd like to pass things over to Ms. Singal to get into some of the specifics around selecting courses for grades 11 and 12.
Thank you, Mr. Brims. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here with you this evening. It's exciting to think about this journey as they go into grade 11 or grade 12. And really, as we think about selecting courses, we think about students engaging in important self-reflection. And, it's an exciting time. Some of our students are quite nervous at this time about making these important decisions, but that nervousness is incredibly exciting and something that's normal and natural. And we want to normalize that for our students. And we've been encouraging to think for them to really deeply think about what do they enjoy? What have they enjoyed learning about up until this point? What topics, courses, subjects, areas make them curious, make them excited to learn about? Knowing that there's still many concepts, courses, subject areas they have yet to explore. Equally, we have them think about what subjects are challenging for them and reflect on the reasons for that. How are they going to work through those challenges? How are they going to develop them? And for some, how are they going to say that that's a challenge I'm not actually taking on as I move forward in my grade 11 and grade 12 year? But being really thoughtful and intentional about those choices and those decisions based on what they're interested in learning about and what really excites them. And of course, in grade 11 and grade 12, it's important that they start to think about how their course selections align with their goals, both for post-secondary options, but also in their career pathway options. So our students have taken their careers courses, they're thinking about those pathways, and now the courses they start to select are going to align with those goals that they're striving to achieve. Really important to reinforce with all of our grade 11 and grade 12 students is that this self-reflection is an individual process, and choosing their courses is also individual and will look different for each student based on what their interests are and what their goals are. And so we really encourage our students to have that self-reflection process and to have those important conversations with their parents and caregivers, but also with the university guidance department. So as we think about going into grade 10, from grade 10 into grade 11, as Mr. Brim said, there are 2 compulsory credits that they're going to have to take in that grade 10 to grade 11 year. And compulsory meaning compulsory at St. Mildred's. So the first one is English, which is compulsory across the province. And we have exciting news to share that we have 2 English options that I'll speak about briefly in a few moments. So they will have an option there in which English course they take, but they will have to take one or the other. And at St. Mildred's, we are very excited that our students are enrolled in and take part in the Co-op Education Professional Internship, which is for credit. So it will be part of their transcript, and is a really exciting opportunity, as Mr. Brims talked about. In grade 11, our students will also take a math course, and that is dependent on which math course they're taking in their grade 10 school year. So currently, the grade 10 students, if they're enrolled in grade 10 math, MPM 2D, they will be enrolled in MCR 3U, which is the grade 11 math course. For students that are taking grade 11 math currently in their grade 10 year, they can take either advanced functions, that's the MHF 4U, or they can take a second math, is the MDM 4U, that's the data management course, more focused on data management and statistics and probability. It's important to note that as we think about both the math program and options there, as well as the electives that we're going to look at in a moment, that the students really start to think about what are the prerequisites for some of the different post-secondary programs they're considering. So this choice and the elective choice and decision-making is about interest, but also aligning with those goals with different post-secondary programs. What's exciting as they go into grade 11 is these options around the English options that we're providing, as well as the opportunities for different electives. If we think about the English options, the two English options that we provide are going to still provide the basis for essential language learning. So they're really going to be successful language learners, whether they're taking the grade 11 ENG3U course or they're enrolled in the new NBE 3U course, which is an English course focused on understanding contemporary First Nations, Métis, and Inuit voices. It's an exciting course. A number of our grade 10 students this year during their local block really explored Indigenous issues and their place in this work, and are interested and keen on understanding for that exploration, that learning, and those concepts even further. So we really encourage students to consider this course as an opportunity that's going to help them understand the world that they live in, while also gaining the English language skills requirements that they need for post-secondary education. And all of our grade 10 students will have the opportunity to ask questions about these two different courses with Ms. Scarfo, the current grade 10 English teacher. And we're happy to answer questions if you have any about this new course that we're offering next year for our grade 11 students.
I'm just going to jump in very quickly.
Of course.
Just to make a note that some questions often come up about admissions and how the NBE 3U course is viewed for university admissions. It is equivalent to the ENG 3U, and the NBE 3U is a prerequisite and does count as a prerequisite for the grade 12 English. So there is no difference whether a student takes ENG 3U or NBE 3U for university admissions on applications, not only in Canada, but internationally. And if there are any NCAA athletes, it does qualify as the grade 11 English. So I just wanted to make sure that that's known.
Thanks, Ms. Bryant. Important information for sure. Let's move on to explore the electives. So you'll note that the elective options when students enter into grade 11 expand significantly. There's so many opportunities here. And as our students are exploring these options for their elective courses, we're encouraging them to think about, again, that self-reflection of what are they interested and curious about, but also thinking about what might be the requirements for their post-secondary programs that they're thinking about exploring. Important to note here is that students have the opportunity to reach ahead and do some grade 12 courses in their grade 11 year. Things like international business or law, communication technology is a grade 12 course. The language courses, especially if they've been taking them from grade 9 onwards, they will be entering into a grade 12 course. Some of the arts classes, drama, music, visual arts, those are also grade 12 courses. So it's really important to think about that. They will be enrolled in some grade 11 level courses, but also in some grade 10, some grade 12 level courses. And there are also courses here in the electives that they might have a taste of, but they won't have a full understanding of, everything from physics, chemistry, and biology. They've had a sense of those courses through their science curriculum in grade 9 and grade 10. But again, the exploration of those will go much deeper and prepare them for post-secondary education. So thinking about what are they interested in those areas, but also what are the requirements for those programs is going to be important. The other thing I'd like to note is kinesiology, fitness leadership. These are also really interesting courses for students to consider and think about. So we really encourage our students to sit with the course calendar, which you'll hear more about at the end of the presentation, and really understand what's happening in these courses that they might be excited to learn about. And in grade 11 and grade 12, students have the access to be able to take ELCC courses through our e-learning consortium. And in the grade 11 year, they have 2 courses available to them: Human Growth and Development, which is also can be preparation for the AP exam if students choose to write that AP exam, and Environmental Science as an option for a full year hybrid synchronous and asynchronous course. So shifting from grade 11 to grade 12, their final year in high school, really exciting time, lots of decision making happening in this year, and one that we want to encourage them to really think about now. How are they making plans and thinking about course selection that helps support their post-secondary options? All students will be enrolled in the grade 12 English course, and it's really important to note here that that grade 12 English course is both compulsory for graduating, but also will be part of their post-secondary admissions process. And every post-secondary application, whether it's in Canada, US, or international. So that is a really important course that students are really focusing on, because it will be part of their grades that are submitted for post-secondary applications. While students are not required to take a grade 12 math course, we really encourage students to consider taking a course. And if they are choosing not to, that should be done in consultation with Ms. Bryant or myself. And there are, again, options for students to take in their grade 12 year. Students intending on applying to engineering, science, or business programs may be required to present calculus and vectors. That's the MCV4U course, which students also have an option to do the AP with that in the top 6 courses of their university admission. What I think it's really important to note here is that not every science or business program will require calculus and vectors. And sometimes students might make a decision not to take that course, realizing maybe in October or November that suddenly that's a requirement for a program that they're now interested in. So doing some thoughtful thinking around that in consulting with Ms. Bryant is going to be a really important decision-making process for students that might be considering science or business programs in their post-secondary planning. Students interested in social sciences and humanities would really benefit from taking data management, MDM4U. It is a really great course that focuses on statistics, probabilities, data management, and can be really helpful for students in social sciences and humanities, but also in the sciences and in business. I'm a math educator, so I get excited talking about these courses. So if you want to know more about them, I'd be happy to jump on a call with you to understand the differences between advanced functions, calculus and vectors, and data management, but all really valuable courses for our students to consider taking. Now, you'll notice that electives expand even further when we move from grade 11 to grade 12. And of note, it's really important to see that there are some courses here that are, really meant for our grade 12 students. Things like writer's craft, social equity and justice, the grade 12 communications technology course, grade 12 accounting, economics. These are really designed for our grade 12 students, as well as the continuation on biology, chemistry, physics, grade 12 French, all of our arts programs in the grade 12, dramatic arts, music, visual arts, media arts, painting and drawing are also exceptional courses for students to consider. So at this stage, students are really starting to think about what are they honing in on. And as Mr. Brim said, that professional internship can help start to guide them on making some of those decisions as to what are they really going to now invest their time and their energy and their learning in. Again, students have the option in their grade 12 year to take an online learning course through the e-learning consortium. We offer Earth and Space Science, Human Growth and Development, and Business Leadership at that stage. There are some other course offerings, and Ms. Bryant will talk a little bit more about the e-learning consortium to give you a greater sense of how that would become a part of your daughter's programming should you choose to.
Unmute. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Most of you know I'm Nicole Bryant. I'm the Director of University Guidance at SMLS, but I'm also the site administrator for our e-learning course options through the ELCC, or the E-Learning Consortium of Canada. So to give you a bit of an overview of what that is it is an organization with a group of other CASE accredited independent schools who offer an online e-learning course or two to students outside of their home school. So what this permits is schools to be able to offer course lists that extend beyond the offerings that they have in-house, giving greater breadth and depth to their course offerings. We utilize the ELCC primarily to allow students to take courses that we may not offer here at the school, but also should a student have a course conflict or want to ensure that they meet that requirement for a second e-learning credit, we do offer students to be able to take that in spite of having a course offered in-house. As was stated previously, we do, it does qualify for that second e-learning credit. The majority of our students for the past 2 years for whom this mandate has affected have achieved that second e-learning option, but not all are interested in taking an online course and therefore can opt out of that. The course options are offered at only the grade 11 and 12 levels. So we do state that students should be in grades 11 or 12. There are flexibility. The list that we gave for when students could take courses, there is some flexibility in then, but that's generally speaking recommended, the recommended year for when a student should take that particular course. Advanced placement is a bit of a curiosity for some families who have an idea of what it is, but not necessarily some of the nuances of what the advanced placement program is. The AP program is run through the College Board. This is the same organization that runs the PSAT, the SAT, other standardized tests, and is university level material that is delivered through high school courses, and administered an exam that a student will write in the month of May, and a grade is assigned to that, a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 out of 5 for that university level exam. Now, the way that we run our AP program at SMLS is that students will take the grade 12 course alongside the AP curriculum that is aligned to that course. We have 9 course offerings for students who are coming into grade 12. And those are courses that a student is expected to be taking in grade 12 and then can enrich that grade 12 piece with an actual AP exam in the month of May. I just want to make a note that APs are not a requirement. It's not something that we mandate. However, we strongly encourage students to consider taking an AP or 2 or 3 in the subject area that they are intending to study at the university level. Our young alum who are studying in first year always say that in addition to our teachers preparing them, studying AP really helped to give them an advantage in how comfortable they were in that transition into first year university and those classes. So we really encourage students to see it as the chance to better prepare themselves for university, to enrich where they want to enrich. So they are not required to take a whole host of AP courses, but instead to take those that they feel that they want to take. The second piece to taking an AP is that there can be advantages to university applications. However, that's primarily internationally. So in Canada, with the exception of McGill, there are no advantages for a student taking an AP for the admissions process. However, there's certain to it in their preparedness for university. It will be noted that the UK does really look at those AP scores specifically at the grades 11 and 12 level. Students can have taken an AP exam prior to grade 11, but they really want to see that rigor compressed into their junior and senior years. The US will evaluate a student's for admission and look at their APs, but the focus of their review will be on their transcript. So a student who is intending to apply to the United States will submit their transcript, or I will submit their transcript as a part of the school report, and the evaluation will be on all courses that appear on their transcript, which is anything that would be at the grade 9 level and above, as well as any mid-year grades that are submitted in the student's grade 12 year. I just want to note that the AP curriculum and the Ontario Ministry curriculum that a student would be studying in grade 12 are distinct and separate. A student begins a course in September and then will write their final exam as a grade 11 or 12, depending on if they're doing the AP in grade 11 or 12, in the end of May. The AP exam, however, which is evaluating only AP material, will be taking place in the first 2 weeks of May. So a student's transcript will only have their final grade from the course appear on it, but we can submit AP results, particularly at a 4 or a 5. We can produce those as part of a separate school report for university admissions outside of Canada. A note that students can also use these credits at a 4 or a 5 for first year credits once they matriculate to a university. So it depends on the institution and it can depend on the program as to whether or not a student would be permitted to actually use that as a first year credit or not. It depends on both the exam that they wrote and the program to which they are applying. As a note, students who are interested in self-studying for an AP exam, so these are students who want to write an exam either that for a course that we do not offer, or they are not in grade 12 and are looking to write an exam in grades 9, 10, or 11. We will order an exam and proctor that exam for that student. However, we really want students to have a conversation with university guidance to understand the reasoning for taking those exams outside of the grade 12 year. A lot of students ask or say to me that it's not helpful to wait until grade 12 to take their AP exams. I understand because they want to have a result that they can produce for the universities. However, universities do want to see rigor in their grade 12 year. So the expectation is no matter what, they would be taking APs should they be applying internationally. This is not specifically to Canadian schools. Canadian schools will be focusing on a student's top 6 grade 12 U/M courses, but that's of the courses that we were just discussing, English, and then the electives that the student has taken over their grades 11 and 12 years. So the course selection process, we're underway. We have already started with a senior school information session. So we presented to all grades 9 through 12 last Friday, talking about the application or the course selection process and what they can be doing now. And we are also having grade-specific presentations tomorrow for our grade 10 and 11 students to talk more about the nuts and bolts as we are tonight of what they need to be selecting and what electives are options to them. Tonight, we have our course selection presentation to you all, where hopefully we are answering your questions and you're getting a good understanding of what the process is like over the next number of months. In the month of February, once students have completed their course selection next week, we will send parents students' course selection. Should you wish to have a conversation to make a change, we can do so in advance of the March break. In May, so in the spring, right around the time where things are starting to wrap up for our grade 11s and our grade 10s are starting to head into those final summatives as well, we will confirm choices with students. Advisors will check in with their advisees to have a conversation about what they have selected and where they're at, what questions or wonderings they may have as well at that time. And then finally, students will receive their timetables via MySMLS in advance of the school year starting, where they will have their timetable and full schedule. Should the students wish to make any changes in advance of the school year, we can speak to those. Any changes a student is looking to make once the school year is underway, we request that that take place within the end of the first cycle. So that's within the first 4 classes that a student may have, to ensure that if they are looking to switch into a class, they're not too far behind. So your next steps and your daughter's next steps are really to take a good look at our SMLS Senior School course calendar. This was sent out to families in December, and we will send it out to again alongside this presentation, most likely tomorrow. The course calendar, particularly the second half, provides really good information and details about courses. So the course descriptions, including prerequisites, are contained in the back half of that course selection calendar, and just gives you really good insight as to what a student would be studying. However, a really good use of a resource are the teachers who are currently teaching those courses. A student can really glean information about the types of assessments that are taking place in that course, and really what are the topics, because the course calendar won't dive too deeply into the topics, but the teachers or even older students who they know may be taking the course can give a lot of information about those topics that are being covered. Then the students will also be having one-on-one meetings with university guidance. We've already started to meet with some of those students who've been reaching out, wanting to have those conversations. While we won't be able to meet one-on-one with all grade 10s and 11s in advance of the course selection period, we will meet with students before the March holiday to review course selection and ensure that those choices are in alignment with the students' post-secondary goals, as well as to just gather information. We had a good number of our grade 12s this year applying internationally, and I really have had the chance over the past 3 years to get to know them through course selection in particular, and really understanding their goals. So it's a really important thing for us in the UGC office to really understand why students are picking those courses, provide our advice, and really just have really good conversations about what they like and what they don't like. But they need to do a bit of that pre-work in advance themselves with their self-reflection. Next Thursday is when students will select their courses, and they will do so in Advisor. Some of that reflective conversations even started today in Advisor. We will have meetings, as I said, with the grade 10s and 11s tomorrow to talk about some of this information. And then it'll give them a bit more time to look into that course calendar, reflect, have conversations at home as well, and then select those courses for Thursday of next week. It's important that students consider not just their academics, and particularly as they're entering their grades 11 and 12 year, the things that they're doing outside of the school, extracurriculars, co-curriculars, athletics, all of those things that make a student more well-rounded are important to continue and need to be balanced with a student's course load. And taken into consideration how they can be utilized for university applications as well. So students need to consider what they're needing as far as academics and their credits go, but also are they needing to complete those volunteer hours? Hopefully not. Hopefully they've been working on those consistently throughout high school and haven't left those until their grade 12 year. I'm usually pretty good about connecting with those students and strongly encouraging them and giving them suggestions on how they can be involved. But are they needing to take that into consideration? Keeping in mind that their community service hours that they receive cannot be used for Duke of Ed. So these are distinct and separate organizations and requirements. Community service hours can be completed in batches. So students can actually complete hours 5, 6, or 7 in one day, whereas the Duke of Ed requirement is 1 hour per week over a consistent number of weeks. We provide students with ample opportunities to have their bronze completed by the end of grade 9. So if there are any grade 11s in particular who are still working on their bronze, please make sure you have a conversation with Ms. C. Pickering. Book a time with her to talk about how you can ensure that you complete the bronze, ideally before the end of grade 11, as it's something that we require by the end of grade 12. Your summer enrichment guide was sent out to families also in December and was sent out to students last week. We will include it again with this presentation. For students entering grade 11 and students entering grade 12, I really want to encourage them to consider enrichment opportunities, experiential, 4-credit opportunities as well, to really round out and get thinking about university and pathway planning in a way that's different than just taking their courses here at SMLS, but experiencing what it can be like to dive into engineering at a program at the University of Toronto or something experiential elsewhere is really valuable at this time. Of course, having a bit of a holiday and having a break is important, but adding into your summer for a week or even a couple of days, something that's going to allow you to be thinking ahead to post-secondary planning is really quite helpful. For our grade 11s who are intending to apply internationally, I have met with each of them one-on-one in the fall and talked already about summer programming that would help benefit applications specifically to the universities and colleges in the US and abroad that they are looking to attend. Grade 10, I always find students who are intending to apply internationally, programs in the summer, particularly around research, can be really helpful and fruitful for an application, in addition to doing some pre-learning for some of your grade 11 courses to really ensure that those grade 11 marks are as strong as possible. So if you are a current grade 10 who is intending to apply internationally, we will meet around course selection and again in the spring to dive more deeply about strategic standardized testing for your grade 11 year, thinking ahead to kind of how we can package grades 11 and 12 as a 2-year sort of plan, especially for international students. And with that in mind, sometimes students seek out opportunities in the summer to take credits through external providers. They can be really great experiences, but we just want those conversations in the UGC office so that we understand why you're seeking out summer credits. really not recommending core courses, particularly in courses that are required for university admission, and really encouraging you not to take grade 12 English because it's a requirement for all programs to which a student is going to be applying. But we want to understand why you're looking to take courses outside of the school. And they can certainly be great opportunities, especially if it's something that we do not offer at the school or can be experiential in nature. But we just ask that you ensure you have a conversation with us in the UGC office before any registration takes place, just so that we have a good understanding of the reasons why a student is looking to take a course elsewhere, and we can provide advice and insight on how that may or may not have an impact on any university applications. We want to ensure comparison is the thief of joy, they say, right? So we want you to really know that everyone's pathway is different. Earlier in one of my presentations this year for our Canadian application presentation, I showed a video of several of our now first year students, but our June 2024 grade 12 grads at graduation, providing some insight as to something that they wish they had known in September, or what's something they want to tell the graduating class. And their words were reflective of everything that's on this page, is just that everyone's journey is different, that you really need to focus on yourself, that comparing yourself to what someone else is doing can really allow self-doubt to creep in. And really, it's about finding the chances to listen to and trust your voice. I say to our grade 12, so in our grad seminar class, so in grade 12, students have me twice a week throughout the first term, so up until the winter holiday. We work very closely, and I talk about getting used to listening to your own voice, so that when the decision-making process of deciding where you're going to go, you can really have honed in and tapped into that voice, which is something they're going to need to do for the rest of their lives. So I really say grade 10's going into grade 11 and grade 11's going into grade 12. It's great to have advice of those around you, but it's really important that you focus on yourself and reflect. Come back to that reflection piece on what really are you interested in, what makes you happy, and really focus on your own journey rather than comparing yourself to others, which is sometimes easier said than done. I'm well aware of that. So with that, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I believe we may have a few questions in the chat that perhaps Mr. Brims, we will answer live.
Yeah, thank you for all the thoughtful questions asked during the course of the webinar this evening. Thank you, Ms. Singal and Ms. Bryant, for providing us with fulsome information. Hopefully everybody attending tonight has enough information to help their daughter make informed decisions next week as we pursue course selection. A couple of outstanding questions. One is, which universities in Canada accept the AP course credit? You may know a list, Ms. Bryant, clearer than I do, but I know that most would require a score of 4 or 5 on the AP exam for it to be considered a advanced placement credit. I believe McGill University, if I'm not mistaken, and UBC, is that correct, Ms. Bryant?
So all universities do, it's just dependent on the program as to how they utilize it.
Okay.
So if a parent is interested in knowing what program and what school, you'd actually have to do an individual search, but the majority of universities will accept it. It's just dependent on what it is. McGill in particular require students who do disclose AP results as part of admissions to use that as first year credits. So McGill begins in what they call year 0 and goes 1, 2, 3. So parents who are familiar with other schools that have IB, so an IB student who applies to McGill would actually enter into year 1, and students who have numerous AP credits that are that qualify for their program, it has to be, that's program specific, would be qualified to enter into year 1. which we've had students from SMLS do that. Yes, but the most universities, McGill's the only one that does that. All of the universities gives it the option to the student, and I always say, if a student can retake a little bit of information, they're not necessarily going to retake everything. It can help build their confidence, especially as they transition out of high school into university. So having the AP material, and sure, retaking it a little bit in first year can actually build their confidence and, you know, better prepare them for their second year or even second half of first semester. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Last question here is, for students currently in grade 10 and not on Reach Ahead Math, is it a disadvantage to get early decisions if applying to engineering degree, assuming calculus and vectors is required? So that's an interesting question. I think anyone who's in Reach Ahead typically would still take calculus and vectors in grade 12. In their grade 11 year, they would likely take advanced functions, which in their grade 12 year would mean that they would have a completed grade 12 math course already on their, you know, applications and repositories of courses completed. To what extent that would be an advantage for early decision or not, I would defer to Ms. Bryant on that.
Yes, so we are a full year semester, we're a full year school. So this means that universities will get a midterm for calculus and vectors at the same time as students who are producing final grades from semester one. So what that means is that a student is still going to be reviewed even in earlier offers because of the submission of a midterm in January. And just as a note, for students who are not in Reach Ahead Math, that's actually the norm across the province, is that students are taking advanced functions in calculus either concurrently, as you would at SMLS, and our math department has made it very approachable for students to take calculus alongside advanced functions, or students who are in semestered schools would actually take calculus in second semester most commonly. So I would say there's no disadvantage, particularly since I'm going to say 98% of engineering programs across the country are going to wait until they have grades from the January-February submission and not admit earlier, especially if schools have a supplement. So a school like the University of Toronto or Waterloo or UBC, those schools are not going to give any offers before they see marks in that January-February period, which is when we would submit midterm marks for our full year courses. So absolutely not. And I can say historically, I have not seen students who've taken advanced functions in calculus in their grade 12 concurrently. They were not at a disadvantage at all.
Mr. Brims, I think this question that you're answering is a good one to maybe go live on.
Sure.
The question is around requirements for calculus and vectors. Why would someone take advanced functions? It's a prerequisite, actually. So in order to take calculus and vectors, you need to take advanced functions. The curriculum is designed in a way that the advanced functions course prepares students for calculus and vectors. But as Ms. Bryant noted, many of our students will take it concurrently in their grade 12 year, and our math department has designed it in a way that supports our students in their math education and doesn't hinder their progress in both courses if they're doing it concurrently. But it is a prerequisite, so the advanced functions is required for students that are taking calculus and vectors. It is not a requirement, the advanced functions, for data management for the MDM for you. So that's the distinction there.
Generally speaking, math is not something I would recommend taking outside of the school, whether that be especially functions, so that's the grade 11 math, or advanced functions or calculus and vectors. Some universities do flag maths being taken outside of the school and do take it into consideration, like Waterloo, especially for engineering, or U of T. So this is taking Reach Ahead Math. It's not a case that you must take functions or advanced functions before to try to do the reach ahead, so you're only doing calculus and vectors. We certainly make it work for students to be doing it at the same time. And some of our students who have the strongest calc and advanced functions marks actually took them at the same time. These are students who are currently at the Richard Ivey School of Business, who went into management last year, I'm thinking off the top of my head. So very successful students getting into programs by taking them at the same time, not consecutively.
Co-requisite
Yeah.
Yes.
for you. Yeah.
I think that's an important note to just remind everyone tonight, and we'll remind our students tomorrow when we speak with them, that as they're making decisions and choices about grade 11 and grade 12, looking ahead to those prerequisites is really important, so that they're not caught in their grade 12 year thinking that they are going to take a course where they didn't do the prerequisite. And that's where we can consult with them one-on-one when we do meet with them. And if changes still need to be made before March break, we can still do so. But really encouraging reading that course calendar where it outlines under each course description what the prerequisites might be is really important and a valuable skill for our students to do, because that's a skill they'll need when they go to post-secondary as well, about what are the prerequisites for courses that they want to take in their post-secondary options. So it's a good practice to do now.
As a note, part of the presentation for our 10s and 11s tomorrow, we'll be showing them a resource called Ontario University's info.ca or ouinfo.ca. This is a resource that provides all programs in all 21 or 22 now universities in Ontario, all grade ranges and prerequisites for those programs. So students can evaluate and compare engineering at 3 different universities and see if there are different prerequisites, and can actually see how the grade average, so how their average would be pulled together in those top 6. So again, that's all 22 universities across the province. There is no one-stop shop for outside of Ontario. So students who are interested in schools outside of the province, UBC, McGill, Dalhousie are particularly popular choices. You actually have to go to that school's website and look at the admissions requirements for students coming from Ontario, because it can vary from province to province as well. There will be a presentation as a note for this group in the fall, talking about Canadian applications with a deep dive into Ontario applications. So there will be a lot of information coming at you, especially parents of rising grade 12s, a lot of support for you in the fall.
Well, I think that brings our presentation to a close for this evening. Thank you to all the families who attended. As mentioned, we will send out a recording of this webinar along with our course calendar, summer enrichment guides, and any other resources that we think would be helpful to help guide you and your families and students through course selection. Thank you again to Ms. Bryant and Ms. Singhal, and have a good night, everybody. Take care.